So there we were on the end of the last tape, and to show you the level of professionalism that we have, I didn't realize we were running out of tape. Obviously this is part 2 of the lettering, and boy, I didn't even finish my coffee and we ran out of tape. Anyway, we're going to pull up the rest of this lettering letter by letter. I really do like the way this looks, and it has the nice angles and flares that I wanted. We're hoping we're going to have a visit from Sergio sometime today, possibly later in the week, with our new Zetron transmitter. That's one of the parts we have to get ready for the upcoming B25, and this is version 4. We've come up with 4 different transmitter shapes for Sergio, and he's managed to make one every time that we upgrade it. He's been able to come up with it. Apologies for not either ending the other tape first or something. I'm not sure. You have to realize it's coming up on the time of the year when we're going to be doing many things at once. B25 is the primary one, but we're also going to be trying to finish this project. We'd like to, in the spring, have this project done and have as much of the B25 as possible done, have the motors tested, the Zetron all worked out. And then we don't know if we're gonna finish that model in time for Brodax or the Nats. And we're certainly not going to rush it, because there's going to be a lot of unique features on that model. There's just so many things happening here. You know what I need is I need a twin of myself that could work all day while I could sleep. Well, anyway, we know that's not going to happen. So the alternative is Karen brings me down cups of coffee all night long to keep me awake. Don't fall asleep, don't fall asleep. Remember, from time to time, and I just did it up here, I scratched the white with the knife, tip of the knife blade. I don't even worry about it, because at several stations in the course of the finishing, I'm going to have my little touch-up kit. In this case, it's only red, white, and black. Only 3 primary colors on this plane. After I get some clear on here and whatever, I will go ahead with a little tiny brush and touch up any little scratches I put into the lettering. Even though I'm trying not to get any, there's a reality check, and the reality check is no matter how many cups of coffee Karen brings down here, I still get tired at the end of the night. And hey, but that's life. And the choice you really have in life is to watch a lot of, I guess soap operas is the best thing. That I watch Discovery all the time, or Wings, or whatever. But some people are glued to the TV, I'm glued to the workbench. And that's really the secret. That's the secret to no matter what you want to do in life. Build models, get rich, have a nice custom car, or whatever. If everybody else works 8 hours, you work 16, and you'll probably win. Even if you're a relatively average person. If you just work double the amount of hours, and double the amount of time, put in double the amount of effort, spend double the amount of money, you'll get old twice the time like I have. Anyway, I do see a couple of spots. One of them's up here, one is here, where we really are going to have to touch this up eventually, but right now I won't worry about it. I'm going to finish pulling up all the tape on this, and we won't even do this on camera. The rest of it will be relatively the same as we did on the end of the last tape, beginning of this tape. And I always try to have more than one project going, so that, like yesterday, when I finished this, well, I didn't want to be done with this and then just, you know, just go to the movies. I want to have something else to work on right away. Just cut it off. One of my final little tips, and this is a good tip, take a little bit of M600 on the tip of your finger now, not on a whole paper towel, and just wipe the white once. See what I'm doing? Going around once. Don't go back over it 6 times. That's why. Because if you do, now let it all dry out. I'll do each letter individually. I want that to evaporate. It's dry down here, and then just wipe it dry. Now what it does, it degreases it first of all. If you go over it, you have a tendency to make the white pink. So now I go to the next letter, pick a new spot on a paper towel, wet it once around. See how it fit? Now if you keep going over that, So I'll go right down this, and that basically finishes this. And we're going to put this aside to dry. We're expecting Sergio. I hope he's going to be able to make it today, but I want to get some things I want to deal with him with this Zetron, and that is a key part of our B25 program, getting the Zetron ready. Now, in the past week or so, we've really put a lot of time and energy into this lettering, and I like to look at it from several different angles. It, of course, is going to have some little touch-ups, and there's always a spot. I don't know how to describe it. There's a little spot right there I see, too. That's normal. I'm satisfied the way the little highlight worked out in the middle. Again, once I assemble the whole plane, then I need to make other cosmetic decisions here. But so far, I really like the way that laid out, and I hope that's given you some idea of, choices that you'll have on lettering up your own plane. No matter what angle I look at it, no matter how I look at it, I am satisfied with that part of it, that did work out okay. But we did the whole year last year with the Typhoon, and to really try to debug and come up with the latest transmitter design. Lucky Pyatt and Keith Trossel, I believe, are testing it out in California. I sent them my transmitter. So this is going to be the stage 4 transmitter when Sergio gets here. We're going to use, and this is purposely we're going to test it and to try to run 2 motors at the same time. Of course, we need to somehow synchronize the 2 servos, and that's what I need to talk to Sergio about today. I know we're flip-flopping back and forth here from B25 stuff to Miss Ashley's stuff, but just think of some of the paint job possibilities, and I'm thinking of some of the backmasking possibilities. But also I need to know, and the other thing I want to talk to Sergio about is where we're going to locate the receiver in this, and basically how we're going to get the 2 throttles to synchronize. Now, there are electronic things. I just don't think they're appropriate for what we're doing, but I'm going to, again, Sergio is nice enough to come over here, so that's the primary thrust of what we're going to be discussing. The 25 project has become so complex, and basically because we're going into uncharted water, we're actually going into an uncharted ocean here. But a big part of it will be, and Dave Downey has already done most of that, is coming up with the scale, semi-scale outlines, and that we already have relatively under control, but the electronic part of it, we're going to be depending on Sergio for upgrading. And actually, if we had to use the transmitter that we used on a Typhoon, it wouldn't be a terrible handicap, but I still think we can do something even smaller and better. And that's going to be something that possibly they'll want to sell in the world of control lines. Sergio will want to sell it. The major thing we've spent most of the time that we've spent on the CAD-CAM program was getting the final, I guess I'll call it the dihedral brake in the wing. That was the most critical thing so far, was to get that dihedral brake just right. Because it can't be scale, exact angles, because of the fact the wing is much thicker. But to have it look right, it's such a critical thing. That's one of the things that Dave Downey has done a wonderful job on. And we're going to be printing out those final plans, I hope, within the next week. It makes the project so much fun and so challenging. Yeah. So just so everybody knows, this is Sergio Zegras, and the latest. This is the one we're going to win the war in Afghanistan. All right. Look at this. Now the smallest. The one that Lucky has is the same amount of emitters.
This part is the same.
This is the controller.
Yeah.
This is on off.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
Goes like this.
Yep, right in your hand.
Control, right? That's what you want?
Yeah, exactly.
And this is for the charger.
Oh, this is for the battery is already inside here, or the room for the battery?
Everything is in there.
Pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Wow, this is nice.
So this is the
charger.
This is the charger.
Okay.
This is the checker. So you can do the whole thing.
Now, are these smaller batteries that are in there?
Very small.
Okay, with
110 milliampere hours. And I tried so many different batteries, so many different boxes, and after I did this, and then I found a box here that maybe will be the next one, because this can take a little larger batteries, and fits in one piece.
Oh, yeah.
So this will be here, the control, wherever,
Yeah.
and you close it. But I have to see if I can find these boxes now.
Now, when you make, Sergio, what I wanted to know, when you make, and it's going to run 2 servos, you just run both wires together?
Yeah, I think you can run.
I mean, I'll make a test. I don't have 2 servos, so I would make a test today.
Yeah.
I'll make it. If it doesn't work, I'll call and we'll figure it out.
If it doesn't work, you'll buy something they call Y buffers that FMA sells.
Okay.
Actually,
Do they make a harness that already has 2 connectors and everything already, like for a twin engine
Yeah, I
plane?
designed something for them.
Okay. And FMA has it. It's FMA Distributing, by the way. Sergio, you consult for them or work for them, or
I design
just take a
for
check
them.
and don't do anything. That's what.
I design and then they manufacture.
Now keep in mind the advantage of this is handheld, and you can hold it up on your
You
chest,
told me that's how you
and you
want it to hold it, right?
don't need the wire going to the hat.
You don't need
Oh yeah.
battery straps and everything else.
Now it won't matter what I thought of doing. It won't matter if this is this way. See, I could figure how this is going to be. This is probably going to be the most
Yeah,
comfortable.
this is just fits in your head. I think
Okay.
that should be.
And
At
this
the
is-
beginning, I was thinking about leaving it out and let you position it where you want.
No, this is
But then
perfect.
I say, he told me he wanted something to
This is
hold it here.
perfect.
And
Yeah.
that should be okay.
Because it's in my hand. I could even put a little piece of Velcro so I don't drop it, or a rubber band even.
You
And this,
glue it in there.
I glue it. I put it right on my sugar. Put it on my nose even. It doesn't matter. That's half the size of what I have.
Yeah.
And I would obviously have to test and see how long. Now the reason the other one, I never
you
had
have to
problem
test it.
going dead because I don't use it all the time. I only use it at
Yeah,
2-3
you
times.
have to test it, and that's
Right.
why I include this so you can charge it. I charged it, so
Okay.
it should be from here up to the green and even below.
Okay, as soon as it goes
But,
below the green, it should be recharged.
Yeah,
See, I don't know anything
Yeah,
about
this-
electronics, so.
you can charge it for like 3, 4, 5 hours, 6 hours. Not going to
Okay,
overcharge.
it won't hurt to
So
go
you say-
overnight?
No.
Overnight is okay?
Don't leave it overnight, but
Okay.
probably 7 hours will be all right. And then you should get all the way up to the end here.
Okay.
And then you test to see if it works.
Okay.
If it doesn't work very well, then we'll move to this one, and probably we'll move to this one because this is, you see, it's only one battery. You can buy it like this, and that's why I bought it at the meat fair. I bought this for that purpose,
Okay.
but any batteries, any boxes I found already shocked, they didn't fit right.
The batteries don't fit.
Yeah.
Well, that's how
These
take
parts
everything
there,
out of here.
I saw it after that. I said, hey, this is nice.
This
box.
is not objectionable being this big. I just want to see how,
Yeah.
same thing with this. That's not even bad. Well, the lights are not, okay, if you held it like this, that's not even
Yeah,
bad.
this is a little longer.
Because not having a wire going to your hat, the wire is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I mean, I could deal with it, but it took a long time to deal with it, you know what I mean? Like,
That should be okay. The lights will be here
Yes.
like this.
okay,
The on-off switch will be here.
yeah.
And the other one I have to put it somewhere here or here because
Okay, now this on-off switch is, it's on, it's off.
you have to
It's not a
press it.
position switch.
No, you have to press it for on and then you
Okay.
move this.
Oh, you hold it on when you want to move it.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you let go of it, it's off.
Yeah.
Automatic. Oh, that's
So
even,
you
that'll
don't
save even
forget.
more batteries,
So
yeah.
you don't forget it.
Okay, if I'm holding this,
Yeah.
that'll be, I won't forget to do that. Now, my only question was, I was going to ask you about a possibility that I ran into is this is very sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now obviously I could get better, but if there is a way, I don't know what the way is, to make this less sensitive relative to how much servo travel there is, maybe that's not important either. This one might be better than the one I had, but it's the same, the electronics are the same, so it should be the same.
It's the same. Yeah.
Okay, then the other thing Bob Zambelli thought would put a pivot point and make a little lever, so it reduces it, like a servo,
Yeah, you can.
so it's less sensitive. Well, but that I could do. I don't need a genius to do that. I could figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm impressed. So you having trouble? Nobody's had trouble with it so far? Nobody's...
Trouble with what?
No, I mean, what is that? The battery goes dead. I'm trying to think of what else could be... I'll find out if it runs two
That's the
servos
only
without a
thing.
problem.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with the two servos. It's the receiver that
Okay.
you have to do with that.
And I'm going to put the receiver in the inboard wing,
Yeah.
facing me, so it's 3 feet closer to me even though that's not important, but nothing could get in the way then.
Yeah.
If it's where a landing light would be, a tip.
Yeah, very good. You don't have any receiver here, right? Because I forgot.
Yeah, I have a receiver. Yeah, let me go get it. Let me go get the receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. This I call the Zetron box.
Yeah.
All the spare parts I made. I made a spare hat.
Yeah.
Just in case. I never had to use it. Never had to use it once. Because it never broke. I showed you this. I thought this would make a good trip. You know, just as a joke. Not a joke. I thought maybe it would work. I bought, well, Jim, the handle Jim Young made. I haven't had time to test it yet. But all this time, I'm going to have time in the spring. I had a bunch of filters. The filters for the, all different kind of. You want a bunch of them.
You don't do a white shot?
No. Didn't make any difference at all. The box, I may as well give you this one back. I never used that one.
It wasn't mine.
It is now.
No.
Can you use it for anything? I don't know what it is. Maybe I was going to use this for make a Zetron.
Someday
Okay.
You'll find something.
Yeah, I'm learning how to solder a little bit.
Okay.
You would not be too embarrassed with the soldering joints anyway.
Okay, good.
I had a spare,
Is that 8?
1, 2,
5, 6, 7, 8.
a spare never had to use the spare battery even once. Again, the stuff was so reliable.
It'll be too big.
What I thought I had was, and I don't, thought I had a spare servo.
If that will work right, since Radio Shack has this box, we'll do with this box. We'll be buying because this has the batteries 5 and 3.
Okay.
A set of 5 and a set of 3. Even John Ward sells it.
So if Lucky Pyatt wants this, he could buy this now, and then he could send me mine back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then they could test that first, see if it's...
Yeah, test it first and
Sure.
You see how you red and black, right?
Yeah.
You just plug it in, you see where the needle is, and then this charger I made here with the diode and resistor, so you'll be set.
Perfect.
And
Now I have...
how that's going to work. Yeah.
This is yours.
You have a little battery?
I have 2 receivers. I think I do.
Yeah, it works.
I wanted to see, are they the same or different or what? I don't know. Oh, these are the same. These are the 3-channel ones?
Yeah.
Okay. Because one is going to go in a wingtip.
Yeah.
And I got...
servo.
There's a servo in here. See, I thought, I'm so used to doing things that right away you need spare parts for everything. But this stuff, I guess, like, I just got some here's a servo.
Okay.
And then we need a little battery.
Yeah.
So, I know the guys in Pennsylvania are having
You'll
good
never
luck.
use the other channels, right?
No, I only use...
Because if I use this box, I have to use a lower profile thing.
I wrote down how I set it up. When you look at the receiver, that shows you what I know about electronics, right? You're laughing, I know.
Okay. Whatever helps you.
Yeah. Well, I need a lot of help. In a couple of years, I'll know enough that I'll feel comfortable, but I'm not. Here's another servo. Now, it's important, of course, to get 2 servos the same, right?
Yeah.
I mean, get the same brand, the same model, and then will they both? Well,
They should
we'll find
work the
out.
same way.
I'll make a test. I'll
Take a Y cable.
a Y cable, okay.
And as I said, if it doesn't work very well, you order from FMA, they're like $15, $20 something.
Okay.
A Y buffer.
Okay. Now, what is in a Y buffer? Is there an electronic?
Yeah, it's electronic.
thing that- okay.
To drive the 2 servos.
Okay.
That should work like
I'll make a test. It's easy enough. I need a battery, right?
Yeah.
You would think.
3, 4, 7 battery.
I know where they are. I know everything. I got about 6 extra batteries. It was bothering me that I never had to use even the spare batteries. They would last the whole day.
Yeah, well, you don't
Now,
use it.
I haven't charged. See, this is in foam because it goes in a wingtip. I haven't used this in. How long will it keep a charge? 6 months. So it may be. That's not fully. That's not fully charged. I don't know.
This will not plug in here, though.
Oh no, because I have a different connector in the plane.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the little connectors like you have. Maybe I have. There's all kinds of stuff here. We got one that goes from one end to the other end. These are Dean's. You could just hold it. Well, anyway, I don't want to run this. I don't want to run myself to death here, but believe me, this is going to happen. It looks real complicated, but once it's, and I was intimidated in the beginning. In fact, I made these little schematics. But once I've done it once and gone through it, and of course watched the video, I don't think there's anybody who can't. I think Joe Besher could even do this. Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Joe Besher.
We had a great time. We went to his Warburg Club. They threw rocks at me. They threw stones at me.
Why?
Nah, we had a great time. They got some models down there. Those 10, 15-foot models, 60 pounds. Well, some special stuff. Using motorcycle engines or whatever they use.
Yeah, Joe Besher told me the other night you were giving a talk somewhere.
Yeah.
Another club. He said
you
mentioned your infrared stuff.
I mentioned the infrared, yeah. Well, I feel good because it works so well. If it didn't work so well, I just feel like, well, it would be a problem, but it works so well. I mean, if I can do it, that pretty much, and I don't know anything about electronics. Believe me. Making this stuff in this box was a nightmare. And by the way, you may think this is a joke, but this if you have any of these shavers, I don't know who makes this, I thought this would be the perfect shape to hold in your hand. This could be the switch, the lights. You ready to go, Sergio? Bingo! Up! Lights off. Lights on. Lights off. I really was dreaming about this, and I cut up a perfectly good shaver. It's a $50 shaver.
Oh, I have one that I was going to throw it out.
Well, you got two now. Oh man! But anyway, this is he's showing me here. This is, oh, here comes the boss. Working.
Like this.
Oh, I love that. Is that a cork with the servo that it makes that chattering noise, or that they all do that?
Probably that's the servo that does it.
This is a used servo. That's not a brand new one. The other servo does the same thing?
Try the other.
Because I'm going to buy FMA servos. This way, if you know what I mean. I don't have a Y connector, so we can't figure out if that's a. This works so good at the Nats. Everybody was waiting for it to fail. Everybody was sitting like dogs waiting for a bowl of, dog food. And it didn't fail. I love it.
This servo, I don't think it works. I didn't hear any.
Okay, that may be a bad servo. That one works too?
Yeah.
They both work.
You can point anywhere you
Now,
want.
yeah, show that. That's something. You can point that against the wall. Yeah. Point it any way you want. Point it backwards. Mike is packing up some kits for, he's having a big sale on kits today.
Yeah, the FMA servos have a bigger arm, so they move.
Well, I'm going to buy FMA servos. You know what? I don't think the mini ones. I'm going to buy the ones one size bigger than mini servos. You think that'd be they're a little more durable for being in a gas engine plane, or it wouldn't matter?
Oh, it wouldn't matter.
I have FMA's catalog, so, and I'll definitely get a Y connector just to see if. Now we can't do it conveniently. We can't set it up to do two servos at once. Well, I'll make a test. That's for sure.
Right here, because you don't have any Y.
No. I'll make. I don't even know how long Does it matter how long the wires are?
Yeah, the longer, the worse it's going to be, because it's going to drop voltage and induce noise.
Then we should use longer wires. I mean, heavier wire, maybe.
Heavy wire will help, but also this they sell some Y cables with chokes to eliminate noise or reduce the noise.
Okay. Well, I'll see what FMA has. I'll ask them.
Yeah.
Because they have. What restoration project is this? Is this for our little kiddies?
This is for the kiddies.
Since the kiddies bought a house, all we do is restore furniture for them. What is this? This is going to be for their bedroom or what?
No, front hallway, and I'm going to go and leave this.
God. So this table, which is destined to be the B25 table, is now the The mirror and shelf and tchotchke table, huh? Is that the way this works?
That's what it is. This is a work table.
And the B-25 is on the back burner. Miss Ashley's on the back burner. Everybody and everything is on the back burner.
Stop being such a crybaby. This will be done.
I want my table back. I was having so much fun.
1 hour you'll have a table.
Sometimes you just can't win. You just can't win. All my projects on the back burner. Now today I had some, we have to work on Karen's craft projects all day. I had some original printouts. John Pothier laid this out. And I wanted to shrink them down, but unfortunately I didn't write down the instructions for doing it, so I'm going to wait till John calls me back. What I want to do is I want to have these letters shrunk down and enlarged in different sizes so I can see what's going to look the most scale. Again, it was my fault for not writing down the original instructions correctly. Fine, I am not Mr. Computer Literate here, that's for sure. So while we're waiting to get that done, and again, that's part of the final few steps here. I need to continue these stripes along, and it's going to be a very simple thing. I'll do that while either ink or paint is drying. Because this rudder shape is just a little bit taller and wider, I wanted to make sure I have the proportion for the 38s as close as possible. Now, one of the things I've done in the past, I've gotten to this step, and this is really a critical mistake that I've made over and over. And I'll ink a wing or put some Letrasets or do something while the model is in pieces, and every piece looks good, but then when I attach it all together, and this is just screwed together temporarily, then I think, yeah, there's too much ink there, not enough ink there, a line here, a rivet there, or something that doesn't match. Now, because we already have the body made with these rivet lines and some panel lines, I need to be real careful that I don't make the wing look totally different than the body in some way. And so what I'm going to do is I put the whole model together in one piece. And what I'll do, I'll probably start on the bottom and lay out what I think is going to be an appropriate amount of ink that's going to match the part of the plane or have some relationship to it. In other words, the two choices, I don't want to leave it with no ink and no Letrasets, because there's always a few little things I like to put the Letrasets on, thanking people and whatever. And the problem here is I need to match it to something. Now, if I was making the fuselage, obviously I could do the whole thing all at once. But in this case, problem is I want to try to match it as closely as possible and hopefully get that look that in my mind's eye I've had all along, but you never know until you're totally finished if that's going to be the look. Scale, the realness, Ashley, had several different paint jobs in the course of its life, and the 38s were at some point in that time red, at some point black. I liked them better when they were black. I thought on the original model that was how I'd try to scale it. For the exact chronology, but in some of the photos that I have, the 38s are red and they have that distinctive like fading away at the end. And we're going to work on the 38s, but in the meantime I have probably a day or so I can work on laying out the ink lines and the Letrasets. And my feeling is always, if in doubt, you're always better off with one less ink line or one less bird in the cellar. One less is always better than one too many. When you start to put too many on, I don't know, I think it gets distracting at some point in time. It's important, at least in my case, I want to look at the model from several different angles. I don't want to just look at it from one angle. I want to see it from several different angles so I can plan exactly how I want to lay this out. And laying this out is it's not as easy as you think in this case, or as easy as I think. I really want this to coordinate and in some way add to the plane, not to just distract from it. And because I need to match this, the rivet line, so I'll probably lay out some of this in rivet lines, some of it in ink, some of it in panel lines. And we do have a bunch of old Letrasets that I don't know how old these are going to be before they stop working, but they're a couple years old already. We're going to try to use them up. try to do is look at the model from several different angles here to see where or how we want to add something to it. Or does it look like it's going to match, or does it have the look that I'm looking for? Of course, we have to, in your mind's eye, add on the spinner here. But overall, I really like the way the lettering worked out. Anyway, while it's together, I'm going to start laying out in my mind here and try to come up with what I hope will be a presentable, well, I guess an inking and electroset package, I guess, that'll match that fuselage. Now, Mike brought over his plane today. The only problem is it's about 20 degrees out there, and I'd rather not spend the day since we're not in a rush. It's probably 3 or 4 months before we're ever going to get to fly again. And Mike has decided he'd like to change the color to light blue, so I'm going to make a custom color for this. Mix up a very light blue, a powdery kind of blue. But again, we're not going to be able to work on this until the weather warms up. Even though we can paint in the cold, it's just too painful if there's no reason. So a lot of times I'm holding a spray gun, and the spray gun is so cold that it sticks to your hand. Anyway, we're going to put that on a back burner for a day or so. So from looking at all the projects that we could work on today, until we get those letters shrunk down, the next thing, I guess I can start laying out some of the ink work. And it's my philosophy to always have more than one project to work on, and this is exactly the reason, because right now I have a choice of several different things, including possibly this afternoon or tomorrow getting over to George Venturini's, and he's going to be able to print on his plotter or printer, whatever we call it, what I hope is one of the final outline versions of the B-25. Other area where when you make a take-apart plane, you get a little bit of a gain. The gain is that inking it is so much easier, and if this plane were in one piece and you couldn't put it in angles and you had it mounted between tables. I mean, the last one I made, the last Spitfire, get out of here, the last Spitfire, inking it was absolutely a nightmare. And the take-apart features of these planes allows this to be very easy, but I want the stab and elevator in place while I lay out where I want my boxes for the ink work to go. One of the things I can do, I can kill two birds with one stone here. I can lay out these stripes because I'm not going to need the rudder right now. I'm going to basically work with just the stab and elevator and together. So what I'll do is I'll lay out, and I can run right off the edge of the fuselage, lay these stripes out. Again, try to get something drying while we're working on something else. Well, I always laugh and say, well, when you make a take-apart plane, how much time do you save? How much do you lose? Well, now imagine if you had to do this stripe with the tail, the rudder, the yellow, everything's in the way, the rudder doesn't come off, and you'll never be able to get in the hinge line now because it's all take apart to the last minute. You get in there, get that last little piece of masking tape around the corners, and I'm going to lay the stripes out, but while I'm doing that, and how easy is this to work on a stab and elevators now? I can lay out, and by the way, I looked at the drawings, it's going to be a relatively easy ink pattern. The real plane uses a Learjet wing and tail that have completely straight lines. They must have made it with panel lines, I'm not sure, but it would be very easy to replicate. One of the things I like about Brodak Dope is that one coat coverage. Now, any stripe or anything up to 1/4 inch, I brush. Anything over 1/4 inch, I would want to spray or airbrush or whatever. But see, now I can get around the edges of the hinge lines. If this was a one-piece plane, difficult to do that. Not difficult, but not impossible, but certainly not easy either. And because I only need one coat and it'll dry in 20 minutes, half an hour, it'll just speed everything up here. And while this is drying, I can be inking. I like to bring the stripe around the edge. And once that's dry, I'll do the black stripe and the dark blue stripe. It'll be relatively scale when I'm done. a couple little tips I use on inking. I wash my hands constantly every hour or so because you're picking up dirt off the tape, and I don't want to get smudges and fingerprints all over this. The other choice is you could work with rubber gloves. Either way. Now, what I want to do is the first primary thing here is I want to lay out with tape roughly where these ink lines are going to go. This is just rough. I don't need to have this exact right now. Again, you can do this. You can copy the scale locations. And one of the things that's nice about the B25, by the way, we have so many drawings of scale that it's mind-boggling. The other thing that's nice, if you're doing, let's say you're doing a cardinal or a plane that isn't an exact scale model or a semi-scale model, well, you can, it's not a big deal. You can copy from a P51, from a P40, from a something anyway. And this, I think I'll let it go right through the hinge line here. Let's figure out how we want to do this. Right through the middle of the hinge will be fine. Now what this does, it gives me boxes to work in. Notice I've left approximately the thickness of the tape around the outside. And now in here, I can lay out. You notice I'm doing the bottom first, because if I don't like the bottom, I don't care, I'll change it when I do the top. I won't be throwing this whole layer. I got a fingerprint on here already, and I've been cleaning my hands. So now the next thing is to get the pens clean, and boy is that an ordeal. Haven't had the pens in use in a year. Clean them, ammonia, Windex, soapy water, leave them soak overnight, buy new ones. As I do, I keep all my inking supplies, templates, donuts, anything that equates to be an inking deal. And by the way, I have not found one of these pens that works when you put clear on it. They all seem to die. Usually what I like to do, and I'm not going to do it today because we just bought this, notice that one of the inks is made for paper. It says waterproof for paper. That's not the one you want. By the way, I don't even know what number that is. 3085F, that you don't want. What you do want is the one that says, here's another one for paper. This is a key thing. This is one of the things that'll make you crazy when you're doing ink work. This one says for paper and for film. The number is 3080F. Notice I wrote the year that I bought this. That was very recently. I don't know if we're inking Mike's plane or what. Well, we have that. But this ink is good when you're going to make a drawing, or if you don't care. The white ink we're not going to use on Miss Ashley, I don't think. Bombay white ink. Anyway, the point I'm making is you really do want to get some fresh ink. Since we're going to be cleaning the pens. You'll notice how I keep all my pens in complete order. Here's the good set. That's the junk set down there. This is the good set. This set used to belong to Mike. When I say used to, he doesn't know it used to belong to him yet. So I'll pick a medium-sized one, and let's just see. These might not even have to be cleaned. I don't know. Let's see. Medium is about a 50. There's no ink in them. These are clean. Let's get one size bigger than 50. If I remember right, the red one was a nice size. The way these, oh, this has ink in it already. And it writes, oh, Mikey. You never know how lucky you can be. Anyway, you pull this part off, pull this part up. And right here is when you start turning into a Mr. Inkman. This usually freezes up. And it really is a good idea to use rubber gloves on this. You take this out. Load the pen. And on jobs where you want we may want several thicknesses of ink for the wing or for different things. But for lines, an 060 is about right. Oh God, he's got to be, get away, hey! Oh God, I don't believe this. Get out of here! You're toast, get out of here. Oh, I wonder how many planes a year I could build if I didn't have him. my adopted pet. Now see all this ink that's getting on my hands, I'm going to wash most of it off. I just wanted to show what a professional I am. It's like, this time like show-off time when you're a kid. Now if this pen writes, we are really in Fat City, because a lot of times I spend half the day cleaning the pens. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be okay. You really should keep your hands as clean as possible. The reason I'm not real fussy about this, you would think, well, why is he dropping on? Well, because I don't really care. I wash my hands every 15 minutes anyway, because I don't want to get fingerprints on the plane. So let's go see if we can write some lines with this. Get Karen to make you a big cup of coffee, because this gets frustrating sometimes. If I take my ruler or my template, lay out 4 or 5 layers of tape so that the ruler is sitting up off the surface. If you use the flat side, the ink runs down under the ruler and you basically have a problem. Now, there's a lot of things in the world of modeling. I got to get a piece of paper to do the writing on here. Always keep a little pad, just because the pens sometimes they don't want to flow ink the way they should. A couple of other things. Before you even put the part, wipe it down with M600. Clean it as clean as possible. Keep your hands clean or use rubber gloves. I know it gets frustrating after a while. It gets frustrating for me too. And I try to pick one line anywhere. Let's make sure I don't have a kink in the ruler. This ruler had a niche in it. I just pick one line. Notice that I'm doing the bottom first. I stay inside the tape. And let's see if we're lucky today. If the pens are flowing, that is, these pens talk to me and they say, hey, Wendy, you want to ink a plane? No problem. See? Yeah. Then there's days these pens say things to me that you can't repeat even on my video. Okay, so while one line is drying, I can lay out the next one. Notice I'm just staying this side of the tape. The ruler is up off. Now if you get a little smudge, a small smudge, you just let it dry. Don't wipe it off, because you can take a brand new blade and wipe it off a lot easier than, see, I just got a smudge there. You just let it dry. Take a brand new blade and scrape it right off. Okay, so basically this is what we're going to do, is ink one line at a time until we have these boxes created. Find real important is inking both of them together. If you ink one, in other words, all of my lines are going to continue on to the movable part of the surface. So I don't want to have one part start and then it's not even on the other side. Now I see all the dots coming through. I want to connect. Now I just basically have to connect the dots. The next step is going to be, all this has to dry, and it's good, and I'm not going to do it now because I have other things I'm doing at the same time. I give this 5 minutes to dry. The reason is, if I don't let it dry, there's always a spot. Usually it's in the corner where the ink is wet, you get a blotch on your hand and you start making polka dotties or something. It's just easier to go do 2 things. Answer the phone or whatever. Now, what I want to do is lay out, relatively scale too, the scale rivet lines, and these are going to be rivet lines, so I can use leave the tape in place and mark on the tape, divide this up into what I think is going to be the scale amount of segments, and then lay out the rivet lines. Laid it out in relatively equal segments. They don't have to be exact, of course. And now I need to plot where I'm going to have this rivet line go. I need to have one line 90 degrees. And then from that 90, I need to do that with a triangle, lay out one, put a point here, so I can get all my 90-degree point. Otherwise, what happens is you start laying out the ink lines, and then as you get to the end, it winds up walking around, especially on a curved surface. So it's always good to plot it in the front, plot it here with a 90-degree triangle. You don't need to do this on 1 or 2 of these to get a reference. Because pretty much from this point on, problem is, when I was doing the Sidewinder, now the wing had a 4-inch taper in it, and so what happened is, as I got to the end, I was doing the bottom, it went, and at the end it looked like a fan or a peacock's rear end or something. So then I realized, well, yeah, that stripe, if you do it equally, is going to start fading right away. It's important, just do it with a 90-degree T-square or a triangle off the trailing edge. Once you get one line, see now from that one line, you can plot all the others. And handy, John Pothier has given me several of these rulers, and what I do, I get them up off the ruler with a couple of layers of tape. In this case, I don't know what the rivet spacing is going to be, but I can use every third one, every second one, every one, until I decide exactly what rivet spacing I want to have on these rivet lines. The trick is to keep these lines parallel. Now I've decided to use every other one. And if you're in doubt, another way to do this is just put a little piece of tape on the ruler at this point in time. Hold the pen straight up and down. Again, I like the best when the ink lines are not all the same on the plane. Some are rivet lines, because on a real plane, some are rivet lines, some are panel lines, some are Zeus fittings. And trying to make it realistic, you look at some of the things people have tried to do to ink a plane, and it looks like furniture moving around in Home Depot or something. It just doesn't have the look of an aeroplane. So it's always best, even if you're not doing a scale plane, look at what a real aeroplane looks like. This would be a typical scenario. Now, you can see what I've done. I've got one too many here. I need to take that one off, but I'm going to let it dry. This one here, I'm going to wait till it's totally dry, and at the end of this, just go through with a brand new blade, scraping corners, and I'll try to get that on the macro lens. So rather than go on and on and on here, I'm just going to ink this one part of the stab, doing the same thing, take off the tape, clean it up, and then we'll look at, and if we like it, we just do it on the other side. If not, we'll make the change to the top. And this is to take a brand new or a relatively sharp blade and just scrape off any of the ink. There was a couple of things here I didn't like. Here's another good, let's see if we can do this on a macro lens. You see this corner up here? Okay, if I just cut, I call it cutting a tail, just make it square. Not sure you can see that on a macro lens, but it makes for a nice neat corner. It looks like you know what you're doing when you're inking it. Also, you can get the finest of the pens, which is really of no value for inking, and you can put little detail corners on there if you like. But at some point in time, now the decision comes. Now you have to decide, do I like this or not like it? Am I satisfied? Does this look like the real plane? Relatively like the real plane? Well, it's all in the eye of the beholder. And since this is not an exact scale model, you can be free and clear to, for instance, if you had a mistake somewhere in a plane or a little spot you needed to touch up, that'd be a great place to put an ink line or a Letraset or something that would take your eye off of the mistake. Anyway, from pulling this off, I'm getting the feeling that I'm going to like this, and then we're just going to flip this over and do the other side. This is where, again, a take-apart feature of the plane. Wow. Even if you just have take-apart surfaces, it helps. Okay, now the question is just, if I like it, transpose everything and repeat it on the other panel. Always good to have some pictures of the real plane for some ideas or things that you might want to replicate. Example, if you were to skip the inking, and a lot of people do, or they'd minimize, look at the difference between here's a piece that isn't inked, and how much more interesting is it after what amounts to be a relatively short amount of time of inking. The thing that happens that makes people intimidated by inking a plane is they don't know where to put the lines, or they make too many lines and it just looks too busy. I think this is just close to being the exact right amount of lines. And now replicating it, again, relatively easy. But that definitely adds a nice dimension to the plane without an incredible amount of work. Actually, it's nice, relaxing work. Now with the whole tail inked, I guess we spent about an hour a section here, an hour a side, I mean. But you think of how much that gives you in terms of upgrading the appearance, I think that's well worth it. Anyway, and now that we know we're happy with this, reversing it, flipping it over, it's a lot easier to do the other side once you have the first side done. And if you make any mistakes, it's my philosophy all the while. Always make the mistakes or the adjustments on the bottom or on a part of the model that's you're not going to see as often. Tricks that I found works for me well. When I'm doing this side, hey, it's not a problem because I want to get all lines carrying over to the next section. When I go to flip it this way, what happens? Oops. So what I found is a good trick for doing this is just get any kind of a box. Again, because I do mail order, postal box is easy. Now I can lay it flat and work on it right out to the very end. This side off camera, it's exactly the same. It's going to be an exact mirror image of what we did on the other side. Added a little bit of visual interest by making a very slight curve here, which complements the curve that's in the strakes that go back here. I just thought that would look a little more attractive. But of course, other than that, all the ink lines are a mirror image. In the boxes, I just made another box because I didn't realize the tail is bigger than the box. My God, we got a beautiful day here. Anyway, once I get the ink on one part, especially on a take-apart plane, I like to get at least one coat of clear. Now this will give me another chance to look at the color match too. Reds change color slightly when you put clear on them. They tend to get a little deeper and redder. Just as an example, look at the color red when the clear is on it and when there's no clear. And of course, the minute you want to paint, the wind starts blowing like unbelievable. Anyway, this is the last thing we're going to get to do today. I have shop projects to work on, but having this coat of clear on here will certainly be one more step toward completing this part of our winter work. Ooh, that's a bright red. Woohoo! Miss Ashley red. Now, even though it's really cold out here, the dope is flowing out beautifully. Now this will have to dry overnight, and tomorrow we'll work on the wing. Now today, the first thing I want to do, before I even start any of the inking work, here's what we originally started with. And John Pothier, my friend in California, laid this out for me. Notice 138 sweeps one way, one the other way. But because we changed the rudder shape, these were a little too big. So what we did with the magic of computers, and I'm sure this is, well, most people watching the video already know how to do this, we made a smaller set, and this smaller set is now going to be our template. So the first thing I want to do is cut out my template. The other day I had started putting the striping on. I don't care about that. I can just get the mask on this. We're going to use the rubber cement method, which I've detailed many times. First thing I need to do is assemble these two parts, because you can't do them separately. What's going to happen is the 38 is going to extend off onto the second. I need a nice tight fit there. It's going to go through the hinge line at some point, and I don't want to have that it looks crooked or wrong in some way. Talking about this the other day too, about just how nice it is now, for instance, laying out this lettering. If the tail were here, take apart planes, they pay dividends. Now see, because this is thin, I can kind of look right through and see exactly where it's going to go through the hinge line. Now the real model, this side sweeps, each side is different. They don't both sweep the same. Tweet, like Tweety Bird here. Anyway, step one is going to be to get a brand new blade and a cutting pad and cut out the exact pattern. Explanatory, but a couple of the tricks to cutting any paper pattern, and we're going to use paper patterns, I'm sure, on a B25, is try to hold the knife as straight up and down as possible. The rubber cement method is a common modeling way, very inexpensive, infinitely variable. You don't need any mask as such. Now the nice thing about this is if I ruin this or make a mistake in some way, I can just go print it over again. But the first step would be to get a nice clean cut with a new blade on a cutting pad. With the real plane, the placing of the letters, the numbers, is low, and the 8 just ends on the counterbalancer. We're trying to get this as scale as possible, because it is one of the defining features of the model. So I want to lay out these little fade lines too. But quite a bit of the rudder sticks up on top. It almost touches the leading edge, almost touches the trailing edge, and just comes under the counterbalancer. And the phone rings. We have the two. We need the one that's slanted for the side that we're going to work on. What we use, and this is really the lowest tech way, ordinary rubber cement. There's no specific brand. If you don't leave the lid on tight, it kind of dries up in time. But what I've found over the years is there's a real, 2 years, 3 years, just buy a new tube. And we're not going to go any higher than this. We're just going to brush this on indiscriminately. Now the problem is this lettering does run through a hinge line, and that makes it, not extremely difficult, but very difficult to, the final thing. We're going to do this in black, of course. And the advantage of that is it allows us to use the ink pen to make corrections if we happen to make it less than perfect. Now I need to make sure I have the right side here. And of course I don't. This one leans forward. I need the one that leans. Here it is. When do you lose anything? Hey, the neat thing about being old is you'll lose everything. Now, trying to center it. Oops, it's not like a permanent thing here. Now I just press down a roll of paper. This is real easy to do, by the way. This shouldn't be intimidating to anybody. We need to also find the little guys that go in here. Try to get them as accurate as possible. That's not accurate, unfortunately. And because it's going through a hinge line, this is going to be, well, if it was easy, everybody'd be number 38, This makes it challenging. Never think of the word hard. Think of the word challenging. Now, because it's rubber cement, not contact cement, you still get a chance to move things around and jockey them into position. And then once it's in position and you're happy with it, give it about 5 minutes to dry. too is we have so much video of the original model. If there was something we needed to relearn or relook at, we have the original model. Plenty of video to look at and review. Always a help. Do the other side. I put a little piece of tape on both sides so that this won't move while I'm spraying in that line. Again, you need about 5 minutes for this rubber cement just to dry up. If you leave it extra, it doesn't matter at all. Dries up, and this is really very low tech. Take the tip of your finger and just carefully rub away, I'm going to get this up close, rub away all the extra, and you can see it balls up like chewing gum relatively quickly. It's a very, very basic modeling skill, and you can use it over and over, and you can take this pattern off and use it again. Now when I do this, you really don't even have to seal the edges unless you want to be absolutely positively sure. In this case, we'll go around the edges with ink if we screw them up. Anytime you paint in black, it's a little safer because you can straighten out the edges with ink. And that's the material that comes out of there. Now, it's always good to work toward the corners. Don't work into the corner or you leave a little material and you won't get crisp corners. We don't need it out there. We'll backmask that with tin foil. Just carefully. Now, same thing with the 8, and we'll make sure we get it all out of the hinge line. That's why I put those little tape reinforcements. Now, if this were incorrect or something, see, I just peeled that up, it's not a big deal. You can just peel it up and put a little more rubber cement underneath it. Anyway, once that's all cleared off, then we're going to tape off that little area that has little lines in the back. Area here, this little thing just came up, so I wasn't paying attention. It's no problem. Just push some rubber cement down in there. Let it dry a minute or so, and we'll just, in essence, redo it. As soon as it tacks up, this usually sticks right down. The second, the back side of the number that gets these little pieces of tape. So what I want to do is make myself a line as to how far back I want that to go, just for my own reference. And now I can start laying in those pieces of tape. The thinnest tape I have, I think, is 1/16, just so that has the look of the real model. Now I just go right up to the middle of the letter. I can come out onto the pattern here, I don't care. And just move up one stripe at a time. This is ordinary 16th tape. And once I have the whole thing backmasked here, then we'll be ready to airbrush away. Still little details like this. If, let's say for instance, we were to just paint this black, well, yeah, that would work, but when it's that extra little detail, that extra little thing, it defines the model, it sets it apart from, well, hopefully from the models that don't have the little details. He tells you appearance points don't count. Ask Todd Lee. Todd Lee, without a good appearance point score at last year's Nats, did not do well. Come to the team trials, no appearance points, makes the team. Well, you know, appearance points, you could have been on a team and won a Nats at the same time. So I'd always rather have the appearance points. I don't even care if there weren't any points. I just like having a nice model. But there's a lot of philosophies that a lot of people seem to think, appearance, just monocoat, whatever. Well, having the extra little details, I always would rather have them. I know this is hard for anybody to believe, but I just got a phone call. I don't even think it's funny. And the new telemarketing, they told me I won a burial spot that's a $1,400 value. Can't believe it. That's true. I can't believe they're doing that. Anyway, we're going to backmask this all off, and this will be ready to airbrush. A free burial spot. I like to give them a free phone repair, and you know how I repair phones. I need this much masking, but I figured as long as I got time to do this today, I really want to finish these letters. See, the idea is I don't have much time today. It's going to be a very short day. I want to get this done. This can be drying, and tomorrow we'll ink the wing. Okay, we're ready to airbrush that guy out. Now obviously around the hinge lines it's going to get a little dusty because we can't really get the tape all the way down in there. I got it down as far in as I could. And again, we'll see how it comes out when it's done. Well, I usually like to test the airbrush off to the side. Get an idea. And I don't want to hold it at an angle. When I'm airbrushing on it, this type of a pattern, I want to go from directly 90 degrees on top if possible. Now, because we're not really going to put tape on top of this, I can run the risk of airbrushing it relatively dry. If we were going to tape over this, I wouldn't want to do that. We'll come back to this tomorrow, let that dry. Again, 24 hours before we pull off the tape. It's the Christmas season. Peeps is even getting cards. Look at this. Peeps gets a card from Ken Clapson. Look at this. This is terrible. Ken, how come I don't get a card? This is just terrible. Look at this. Hold up. Santa's Workshop. From Ken Clapson. Kenny, you're okay. By the way, he sent this really useful tool. I don't know if we're going to be able to use this to calculate lead-out angles or something. We're certainly going to find out. We'll see if we can use this one on the B-25 project. This note and some photos here from our good friend Cleon Lingwood. Anyway, he says, and he's planning on using a Dubjet engine here, so we turned him on to some possibilities. But this is funny, and I'm going to read this. This is really a cute note. He said, I thought I would print out some pictures of Lewis. This is, I guess, his brother, friend, whatever, Lewis Lingwood. His Gieske Nobla has your super straight lace 4-inch bell crank. Lewis has not gotten used to using a real stump plane yet. He says, I'm not used to a plane with a CG further back than a spinner back plate. Well, anyway, the plane did fly great. We want to thank you for the photos and anything to cheer us up during this inking job. We're going to get back to inking that wing. Now today we're going to basically do something very similar to what we've done on the tail. I'm going to lay out the outlines, and again I'll do the bottom first, the outlines, make boxes on the flaps and the wing, and then connect it with rivet lines, which will be not totally scale, but relatively close, and serves another purpose. It'll be relatively easy to do. And it kind of makes it look like a rib wing, which is one of the side benefits, one of the things I like. It's always easiest to have the flaps in position so that all these lines will line up, the rivet lines will line up. And again, by laying it out in tape, I can get some idea of what it's going to look like first. Of course, if you're a professional draftsman or something, you could skip this step and just start inking away, but in my case, that's not going to happen. This also gives you a preview of what it's going to look like, which I think is helpful. In my case, it's helpful anyway. I always like to get some relative idea of what it's going to look like, before I'm finished with it. Now I need to kind of interpolate here how far in those tips are going to go. And this is the relatively easy part. Now, of course, these lines are much longer. I'm going to have to use the long steel rulers for some of them, the 48-inch ruler for some of these longer lines. Just exactly the same way as I worked on a tail. I want to make sure everything is 90 degrees so we don't have ribs that kind of flow out to one side. And then I can mark my individual line spacing. And I'll mark it on the front and the back. Just like this. it's extremely important that you get a front line and a back line to work on. And I'm using a 90-degree when I'm using a long ruler and I don't have a helper, which obviously is the case today, I have the tape on the back of my steel ruler. I'll try to get an alignment. In fact, I'm going to have to move this. And I see a problem already as I have tape on here from something I was using for alignment. Now I wouldn't say it's an easy way, it's kind of a pain in the neck, but at least it gets the job done. If you can lay the ruler out, because this ruler is steel, it has some inherent weight of its own. Get a couple of pieces of tape on it. Again, we have quite a few of these lines to put on, so I want to just show one up on tape and then we'll do the rest off camera. If you have a helper, if Mike didn't, if he was not busy with his work schedule, this would be fine. I'd recruit him into doing this. Now what that does, that kind of stabilizes the rule. It doesn't really hold it totally in place. Shush! Shush! I'll send you to go live with Dave Downey. You better be good. Okay, now we're ready. And again, we have to see if the pens are going to behave today. And it goes without saying that I'll do one line at a time. In fact, this line I'm going to go back on. Looks like we have a couple little spots where the ink didn't sit just right. Once that dries, I can give it a second or two. I can go right on to the next line. A lot of times, the hardest line, and it looks like this is going to be one of those cases, the hardest line to get is the one that goes right around the leading edge. So I'm being real careful to get the ruler good and stabilized. I've been cleaning each one of the areas where the lines are going to go with M600, but it's certainly good if you can get Mr. Free Helper to come over, or even better if you have two people that both want to ink a plane, and you can do, one guy can be helper 1 for helper 2, and in years gone by when I've tried to do a plane that was not a take-apart plane and did not have a helper, believe me, that was probably my least favorite day in the world of model aviation, and the most frustrating. Out the lines this way, I want to use the smaller ruler. I only need the big ruler to do the lines that are span-wise. The ones that are going this way I can use with the shorter ruler. It doesn't take long before it's kind of easy to figure out where you need the long ruler, where you need the short one. Now, just as an example, I'm going to check it at it. What I want to do is, I want to take a Q-tip, anywhere I'm going to put an ink line, because I'm starting to get my fingerprints all over everything. This will help. It won't make it perfect, but it'll help the line. Like, while I have some on here, I can just go right around some of the other areas that I'm going to do. Shush. Shush. Get out of here. Whenever I've tried to do these lines again without having, you want to ink? You wish this bird could ink. Without having tape on the ruler, it almost inevitably is a disaster. Sometimes it's even a disaster when you have the tape on the ruler. Anyway, it's kind of a unique skill to get these ink lines. I mean, I'm sure. The thing is that in the modern world, there aren't many draftsmen left either. In the generation that just passed, we had real draftsmen that knew how to pick up a pen and clean a pen and ink a pen. Bob Martin's kind of draftsman that did the Spitfire plans for us and stuff. Elliot Scott, people that know how to pick up a pen and do a drafting job. But most people now, it's a computer-generated thing, so. It's usually real time consuming, but at least in my case, it's relatively relaxing compared to some of the other greasy jobs we have to do around here, making molded parts and whatever. Now, I always liked, and it's always a safe thing, to just give it a minute before you move on to, because if there's just a little bit of wet spot and you move the ruler, it just smears it. So always give it a minute or so before I move the ruler. Now you notice that what I've tried to do to make it easier for myself is I try to do all the lines using one ruler, all the span-wise lines, and then I'll go do, and I've already got the boxes laid out for the rivet lines. Now what we're going to do is we're going to space the rivet lines in proportion. In other words, the tail is roughly 1/4 of the wing. So I'm doubling the spacing on the rivet lines to try to make it look like it's in proportion. Because if I put 1 inch line, or use 1 inch spacing, which I use on the tail, what's going to happen is these are going to look all squashed. So in proportion, they'll be double the size. Things that maybe I forgot to mention is if you're used to holding, if you're not used to a drafting pen you have to keep, I keep doing this anyway, just to keep that little check valve from getting clogged up. What I also do is before I go do a new line, a lot of times I'll look at the end of the pen and it's got a little bit of schmutz on it. It's Karen's favorite word. They also have that little paper that every once in a while it'll get clogged up, and I just start a line on that. Now you know what, peeps? You know what's going to ultimately happen here. I know what's going to happen. Somebody's going to be watching this video, and here we are at the Nats at appearance judging, and somebody's going to say, Windy didn't ink the plane himself, he had help. And they're right. They ought to give me 5 extra appearance points for having this bird around. You're going to live with Dave Downey if you don't be good. You're going to get. The only bird that ever got a Christmas card. Get a little tricky. If I had some extra rules, what I would do is bend one to this shape, but I don't have one. So what I'm going to have to do here is, and again, when you're working around, I may have to find a thinner ruler than this. I always want to have something to stabilize this, if at all possible. Now I can bend around. Nice thing about an ink job is you can put as much or as little time as you like into it. You can make it very creative. And the essence is it's not going to ever add enough weight that it pays. Like we're going to save money by not inking. May save time. You save time, but you won't save much weight by not inking the plane. Bit of improvement. I found a straight edge. I want to make sure it's straight, and it feels pretty straight. That has an ability to bend here, which will be real nice. This will save us a little bit of aggravation. Maybe we can even use this. See, what I can always do is put a new piece of tape on here and mark new rivet lines, because I want them to match the tail. Now notice, if I lay this down, what happens? Watch when I lay this down, it tends to curve this way. So I have to take that into account whenever I lay these lines out. at the last second I have to hold that up so that I maintain the line that I'd like to have, that shape. Again, you can avoid all of this by just making boxes and squares and furniture things on the wing, but I think this is the most realistic way to make it. Put the tip weight box and the little gear covers, just lay them in place so that I get the right alignment on the lines when the line is put in. Roll the corners and edges. Now I'm ready to start laying out the rivet lines front to back, and again I want them to go from the wing and go right out onto the flap so they're one continuous line. Try to do is lay this out. I know I have to take into account that little bit of a curvature. I have the line marked front and back, so I know I'm at 90 degrees. I can start right up in the front. One Christmas card and he's a movie star. Hey! You're not eating. Get out of there. You're going to live with Ken Clapson. That'll do it. Up in the snow. Again, you can make this rivet spacing. In fact, we'll put a new piece of tape on here because my eyes are getting bad. And we'll reorient it. I can see it. Time for a new piece of tape, Wendy. Think we can afford that? Here we have one rivet line on, and again I'm checking each one with a little mark I have front and back, so I know they're not skewing off to one side or the other. Be a big spender here, and see how worn out this rule is. We've inked Spitfires and who knows what with this. So what I have some nice yellow tape. Maybe this will be better. Basically because my eyes are so bad. I want to get it right up to the edge, but not exactly on it. Now what I'll do is I'll get a pen and I want to reorient those lines on there. Just be a little bit easier for me to look at. Okay, now with one panel done, and I decided not to run the rivet lines through the lettering, just make the lettering stand out a little more. I'm ready to work on the second panel. And pretty much from this point on, once I get that little rhythm going, this will go very quickly. Actually, this will probably go as quickly as the tail did. Made him get this done in one day. Now I'm going to flip, so I just have to do the flaps here. I'm going to flip this over, but I'm going to leave this tape on so it'll help me line up the top sets of ink lines with the bottom set. Because when you view this exactly from the front or from some of the angles, I wouldn't want to have them that from the front they don't line up. I'd like them to line up as close as possible. It only takes a little bit of extra effort to get that to happen. And many times I've made a plane, and when I'm all done with it, I look at from the front and the trim lines don't line up or something, and I'm wondering, do they ever see that? Probably not, but I see it. Some kind of a poem, and at the end of the poem it says, the gods see everywhere, and boy they do. Ken Clapson sees everywhere. Ken, I gotta tell you, you've ruined Peep. Since he's gotten that card, he's a movie star. He won't leave me alone. Anyway, now we're ready to flip this over. And I'll use these lines, and I'll just basically repeat the whole procedure. There's no point videotaping it over and over again. Repeat the whole procedure on the top, but use these lines to line everything up. Well, it looks like it may warm up this afternoon. If it does, we're going to put the light blue on Mike's plane. Mike has told me if I don't get his plane painted this week, our friendship is at stake. And I'm wondering, just wish it would stay warm for about another week and I'd get the clear on this too. But anyway, the bottom's done. I always lay it out on the floor so I can see if I like the look. In this case, I really do like it. And now it may, I look at it from a couple of different angles. Once I'm satisfied, then I can flip it over. Basically just repeat the whole thing on the top. I don't know if we're going to get to do this today, but Mike wanted, and I know that this is just the theory of it all. Since this is the third ring that's been in this plane, he decided we'll change the color to a light blue, a very light blue. So I'm going to look at what the possibilities of doing that are, just so it looks like a new plane. I guess that's the whole objective here, but it's the same reason I didn't want to repeat the exact same trim job on this, because it really is a new plane. And both of these have something in common, is this one's on its third life, this is on its fourth life. I don't know that you can replace more parts of a plane and still have it the same plane. Replace the fuselage, the wing, I guess it's a whole new plane. Thing, and I don't want to leave this off the tape because it's something that, when it's wrong, boy is it wrong. I want to get, looking straight from the front, get the two lines parallel, not only parallel of course, but the same thickness apart. I think this is the most important one on the whole plane, is to get this one right. I can kind of eyeball it from several different dimensions. And boy, if that line is wrong, and I've made it wrong already on planes, when you look at it, pull the tape off and you say, what was I looking at? And then you can't redo it. Now one thing nice about the ink, if it's wrong, I can always take some alcohol or water or whatever, even ammonia, take most of it off. One of the things I hate about being old is losing good eyesight. When I was young, you could really see this. Now what I'll do is from several angles. It's not only good to do it from one angle, is look at it as the plane would be flying right at you, or as they were looking at it. Because boy, if that's wrong, now that I've said that, everybody will be looking at it. That looks pretty decent. It was the most critical one right there. If that one is wrong, and everything else I think is you could hide it and fake it a little bit, but that one has to be right. I kind of like the way I did the top ink line here with a little bit of curve, kind of gave it a little bit of interest. I'm going to try to replicate the same thing on a wing, except I'm going to have to make a pattern for that. And if I don't have one already made, you can make it out of 64th plywood, put the curve in from a French curve, and that'll give you that exact, actually any shape you want. But it'll look like a match set then. You can just make any shape. In this case, it's something that I used on a Spitfire, the edge, and I can lay out that curve. It just adds a little interest instead of having every line straight, and it kind of accents almost the same curve that's on the tip. So this is the advantage of doing the bottom first, is you can make these adjustments and changes to the top rather than just having to live with it or just having to deal with something that you might or might not be happy with. This way you have that final choice. I still have a little detailing to do on this, but I was real happy the way the ink lines worked out. And I want to take advantage of the fact that, amazingly enough, it looks like a day we'll be able to do some painting to get Mike's plane. At least get that sprayed and painted. That'll be one more step. I can get his paint drying, because I actually need one more day of doing the detailing on this before I'm going to put the clear on. Today has the look of it. May get real cold later, but it's probably about 50 degrees now. So we may get some of this painting done for Mike. Tried to mix up a very, very light powder blue. Again, Mike's looking to just change the plane very slightly. I'm not sure this is going to do it. We'll find out. We're going to have to, where the repairs are on the mainframe, we're going to have to reshoot some silver over it, just so that the color is uniform on the whole side. This looks like it'll be a nice, close plain of Easter Bunny now. When I first met Karen and brought her down to what was my house at the time, I had my bedroom painted this color blue. And she said, "Oh, the Easter Bunny house, how cute." Ooh, that's getting cold. That wind is cold. Now see, if we didn't put the silver over these repaired areas, well, what would happen is the paint, a light color like this especially, would not be even an acceptable match, let alone a good match. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start at the tail, try to get a light coat, just a blocker coat of silver on everything. There's a lot of repairs on this plane, so we're trying to work within the limits of what we can. Not a brand new plane, that's for sure. Again, if I left this step out, you'd see it in the final product. Well, I've got to let the silver obviously has to dry for a while. I don't know in this cold temperature how long it's going to take to dry. Once it is dried out, then we'll shoot the blue. Things I need to do, I need to think this through. I need to put a couple Letrasets on here. And there's a lot of problems when it comes to Letrasets in this day and age. Everything else, I keep the Letrasets in a box, dedicated box. Try to keep them, from getting too beaten up. Now what happened is, they don't make Letrasets. The Letraset's been out of business for a long time. And these pretend Letrasets, and I don't know, there's a lot of them in here, some other ones I have. I don't know what this stuff is going to be worth in the future. But, I'll tell you the truth, I don't care. I think I have a lifetime supply. Problem is, I think, well, except for the Tom Lay ones or these, because of computers, these aren't really the way of choice. Actually, we have plenty in here. I can't believe how many there are here. Wow. Anyway, I did get these from a friend who bought out an art supply store. And I had no idea up to this point. In fact, we got some graphic stuff here. I will definitely be trying to use, ooh, there's some nice stuff here. In the future, maybe on a B25 program, but I'm not going to need that many Letrasets right now for what I'm going to be doing. But keep in mind, no substitute for real Letrasets or Tom Lay Letrasets, which are fine. Some of the other brands, as soon as you hit them with dope, they melt, and then you're stuck. For half an hour or so tonight, I wanted to pick out some Letrasets to use. I don't want to overdo. My golden rule is if you're in doubt, one less is better than one too many. These look real nice, and looks like we got plenty of them. Again, you remember, these used to be $15 a sheet when they were new. So if you have to deal with, you have to deal with it, you have to deal with it. But I just want to set this up tonight, and tomorrow I'm going to come down, Letraset, and hopefully, that's one I want to consider. Hopefully even get the clear on. Again, there's so many of these things, just unbelievable. And at I'll bet there's $1,000 worth of stuff here. If you paid list price for this. And the reason I'm so emphatic about it is, oh look, here's some white ones too. It's just a shame that they're out of business. Because this was one of the things I really liked about at the end of a model's life. Here's some hollow ones too. Ooh, that'd be nice. Anyway, I'm rambling on and on here. And all I really wanted to do was pick out some Letrasets tonight, get down here nice and early tomorrow, and go for it. One of the things, they make these fancy Letraset tools. Never really found that necessary. But one of the things you want to try to avoid is putting dents in a model. Well, I'm going to just roughly lay this out tonight. Like I said, I got about a half an hour here to just try to see if I'm going to like this. I always work off a piece of tape. This fancy Letraset tool, it has all these adjustments and setting. I like a ballpoint pen better. You line up the bottom of a line. See, the first thing I need to do is find out if these are fresh or not, since I don't even know the age of them. They can't be new. So I'm just going to run a little test here of what I think will be appropriate. Again, I get very fussy about lining this up because when these are crooked, boy, now let's just see what an ordinary pen, if they release. Now a lot of times you can pre-release them. As soon as it turns white, we can release it. And that looks like it's going to be pretty good. Now to line up the next letter, I put the first letter right on top of the second one for the spacing. Get the line even. Otherwise the spacing looks a little hokey. Again, the general rule, if you're not sure, smaller letters are better than big ones. Less letters, one not enough is better than one too many. Now I need to set a space here. These look like they're relatively good. If they don't release, you can release them over, like, get them almost ready to release over that piece of wax paper, but you really don't want to put dents in a model. Once it has dents. And then the first thing we want to do is cover this with one coat of, the reason I'm trying to get a little bit ahead tonight, cover this with one coat of clear that's got almost no thinner in it. A dry coat and let it dry before we go any further. Anyway, so there's no point belaboring this. I can just go right on to the next letter. Because again, this is another spot where you can be relatively creative. Now each year I dedicate the plane last year. The original one was dedicated to Gary Levitz. I'm dedicating this plane to my mother, Olga Ertnowski, recently passed away, and I think this will be a nice tribute to her. In fact, we're going to dedicate the B-25 to her also. I already have that figured out in my mind, but she can have 2 planes. She was worth it. Hey, if she put up with me, she might need a whole Air Force. I don't want to go on and on and on here for hours, but I look at each one. If one sticks and it's not correct, you just take a piece of tape and pick it right up. But this was a picture we took of my mom just before she passed on. And one of the things I really feel emotional about, this was a note that Warren Walker sent me. Warren Walker, of course, a great friend. He sent some flowers when my mother had passed away. And look at the last line of this. Build a B-25 for your mom. And I could almost cry. I keep a picture of my mother. These are the 3 things I keep pictures of. Old Chickie and my mother. And this. So I've really committed myself to making this B-25, and I'm going to get some nose art going with my mom's name. My mom's name was Olga. Again, I really want to thank Warren Walker again. Warren is making up some test horns for this model at the time, but build it for your mom. I just thought that was so good. So appropriate. And so, if that appeals to you and you like to dedicate a model, I've dedicated every model that I've ever made in some way to somebody who meant something special in my life. My former business partner, Joe Kay, several people at Harold Price, but this is a little bit different. Anyway, this is just one of the little things. It just takes a little time. We don't have much time tonight. But whatever we have, we're going to come down tomorrow morning. We're going to have a cup of coffee and be bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. And if we get a painting day, get some clear on this, I will be so happy. Because that clear can be drying while we're working on other preliminary things relating to the B-25. And those plans should be ready by week's end, the final version. Now I've decided to keep this kind of simple. I really do want to keep it simple. I don't want to make this any... It has a simple grace, I think, to it. And as I said, tomorrow, the weather report is freezing cold. No chance we're going to paint. Well, we'll see about that. We'll see you in the morning. Now, because of the way we scheduled everything here, this should be totally dry. It can dry in a couple days. You can carefully pull off the back masking. Need to finish up the striping on this part. Put some electrosets on this piece. Pulling this back really slow because you still have the rubber cement in place, and we expect there'll be a few little spots that need to be touched up. Now the last, you see these little shiny spots here? I don't know if you can see them. Yeah, you can see it now. You just take your thumb. Anytime you see a little spot remaining of the rubber cement, see, we didn't seal this up. This is a little bit of overspray there. There's a couple of rough edges here. Well, get our old good friend. Sure you can get the cap off. Be Superman open these things up. And the Grooms takes that right off. If you happen to get a couple of, in this case we have to card the edges down right in here. You can see we got a little overspray in there. I'm going to clean these edges up, and that real fine pen for any, now see there's a little dot like right there. I fill that in with a little tiny pen. Now the next step, I want to paint these two. One is black and one is dark blue. The reason I painted the gold one first is because now I can backmask the gold and paint both stripes at the same time with a brush. I save one drying cycle that way. I know, I can hear the words right now, big deal. Well, even one drying cycle, he'll save us a little bit of time. Trying to pull it straight back if I can. Now whatever part of that edge needs to be carded, you can see the knock the edge down before I backmask it. Pulling off the tape, you just let Chicky pull the rest of it off. It's no problem. He gets all the tape up, no problem. Back where the hinges are, I'll connect these little lines with the pen. Even though you're not really going to see that, it's just one more little detail I'd like to take care of. If you have three stripes to paint, you know, one of the good things you can do is paint the middle one first. I want to make sure I get this right on top because this will allow me to paint both stripes at the same time once I backmask this. Now the way the original one was, the top stripe was insignia blue, the bottom stripe was black, so just need to replicate this. And now the point is, the days we took advantage of getting some spraying done in that nice warm weather, well, it's not going to be warm for the next couple of weeks. We're looking at some real mean, nasty weather out there now. And we're not really going to be able to do much until we get weather. We can put some clear on this. In the meantime, we'll get it right up to the point where it's ready for the clear. Drying, I want to open up today's mail. Remember this photo, something similar to this was in Stunt News. And it triggered off a rash of copycat photos. I won't mention any names. People trying to capitalize on the fact that their plane looked good sitting in front of a car. People thought this was my car and they'd write me letters and say, hey, nice car. Well, listen, people use my ideas irreverently most of the time, blatantly copying them, and then never sending me a dime. Not a dime. The man uses Christmas cards. It's just unbelievable. And does he send a check? Does he send a money order? Cash? U.S. cash? Sends me a Christmas card. Anyway, from Dwayne Rothman, and obviously it looks like he's capitalized on Wendy's great idea of combining a not-so-great plane with a great car. And we will not be passing this on to Stunt News, Dwayne. Send them the picture yourself. Anyway, hey, it's the holiday season. We're all looking to give each other a hard time. We're having and this is the finest point pen I have. I can put corners and edges on this. And now when I want to do lines, I can use the ordinary size thickness pen to just put a line on. It's a lot easier to touch up black using ink than using paint. That's a good trick, by the way. If you have black trim anywhere on a model. Since we started this tape off by not knowing where the end of the tape is, I guess we'll follow in that tradition and just let this run off the tape. We're at the end. I need to decorate this. A couple more Letrasets I have in mind. Again, another thing, if you ever have a little mistake or a little something you want to conceal, a little imperfection, putting some Letrasets or ink lines by it certainly will help disguise it. First of all, I hope you've picked up some little ideas off of this tape, something that'll make your modeling, inking, bird watching, something that'll make it more fun. I try never to forget to say at the end of each tape, pass the tapes around, share them with your friends. As far as I can tell, this is the best way, period, to get people interested, motivated, and whatever in the hobby. Keep them motivated. Because building these models truly is one of the loves of my life, except for my family, of course, and especially Karen. And as this finishes up, and boy, we're coming up on the part painting the clear on. I've been putting a model together from time to time and just looking it over and see if there's anything I want to add or change or take away. Pretty happy with the way this came out, to be honest with you. Well, I get a smudge of ink on this, and of course a little Gorham's and a Q-tips with my own feel for just being a little sloppy. And take it right away. It is just such a good feeling to know that a plane that was once, lost. I guess lost is the right word. And we'll have him back in our Air Force by the time our flying season starts. That's an excellent feeling. Again, it's always best to look at something like this from as many angles as possible to see if we want to change something, add something, delete something. of course, we still have the original videos of doing all this lettering and inking and everything. But it sure has the look of its back. And there'll be a time, and I hope we'll all be together for that time, when we flip the prop again. This plane will have a carbon fiber fuel tank. One of the last jet engines that George Aldrich made for me just before he passed on, which I've kept as, I don't know, some kind of special feelings that I had for George. I like to see that engine run and have a long, happy life. But in my case, it's just good to see it back. Just see it all snapped together in one piece. Now on the next tape, what we're going to do, we're going to start shooting the clear. And we're going to try to get this all buffed out, in fact. It may or may not happen because we don't know when we're going to get the templates. We're waiting for the templates from Dave Downey and a trip up to John Duncan's shop. That's going to be coming up on the B-25 videos very soon. Ashley has been a very special project for me. In fact, it's the only plane I've ever had that's had two planes, that's had two bodies. Carbon body, wood body, carbon wing, wood wing, Kevlar wing, whatever you want to call it. And to all the people that subscribe to all the tapes, as we're coming up, you'll probably get this just before Christmas, maybe just after, depending on how things go with this. The unpredictability of life around here lately. From Karen and I, wish everybody a Merry Christmas, either belated or hopefully you'll get this tape before Christmas. And just around Christmas time, it's always a good time to just look back and say, what a great part of my life model aviation has been, and how many great friends I've been able to have over the years. That whole thing of having your life be an adventure, and if you really know where it's going, well, it's like a trip to the Moorland instead of an adventure. It's got to be unpredictable to a certain extent. Christmas is such a great time around my house. So many good memories. I mean, memories of great Christmases that have passed. Just love to share it with everybody. So many great memories of being young years ago. That's for all of us, because we're all basically the same age. Being young at the time we were was a very memorable, wonderful time. And just how many great and wonderful times are still to come. And boy, we hope the day is coming soon. And Mr. Typhoon, we don't know if he'll be retired this year or he'll join our, I don't know, our Spitfire collection up here. We also have to finish Mike's. He's got his plane stored up here, Mike's plane. We have that latest transmitter that Sergio sent. We're going to be testing as soon as we get a break in the weather. So many things happening here. Just been the best of times. If I had to write a script for my life, I don't think I could make it any better. So many things to be thankful for, especially the friends we've had over the years. Again, thanks for joining us, and we really hope we'll be all have good health, have long life, and have a lot of fun in the years to come.